Thanks for tuning in to the Power Relay with Micah Clay. If you enjoyed this episode, feel free to like, subscribe, and leave a review. For more insights, contact info, job offerings, and other content, check out our Linktree sites at Linktree/Micah W. Clay or Linktree/Southern Staffing. We'd love to hear any feedback. And if you know anyone we should highlight, feel free to drop us a message. As always, thanks to those who work tirelessly to keep the lights on. Until next time.
Welcome back to the Power Relay with Micah Clay. This platform was created to share educational content with you all and not to promote Southern Staffing Group, or SSG for short, but to align with my belief of giving more than you ask of others through amplifying voices in the power industry. I wanted to do this episode because a lot has changed since we launched Southern Staffing Group back in 2022. Not just growth in numbers, but how we operate, how we think, and more importantly, who we've aligned ourselves with along the way. This isn't meant to be a victory lap, but more of a pause, a chance to talk honestly about what's evolved, what we've learned, and why the people around the business matter just as much as the business itself. And who wouldn't want to brag about working with this amazing group? Before we get into SSG specifically, I want to give each person a chance to introduce themselves in their own words, because everyone here comes from a very different background. Jay Schumacher is the owner of Delta Recruiting and spent more than 20 years working his way from groundman in the substation department through apprenticeship and journeyman roles to lead relay technician. His career was built inside the power industry, so he understands the work, the culture, and the realities firsthand. After 2 decades in the field, Jay moved into recruiting to help people find opportunities he actually understands. He's been partnered with Southern Staffing Group for just over a year and brings real industry credibility to how we evaluate candidates and support clients. He is too humble to admit it himself, but I would put him up against some of the most seasoned recruiters I've run across. Jay, I just gave the highlights, but take a minute and tell your story in your own words. How'd you come up in the trade? And then what shaped the way you think about this industry?
All right, Michael. Well, first off, thanks a lot for having me on. Greatly appreciate it. Appreciate the intro. Finally got an invite to be on the podcast, so that's awesome.
Been a minute.
Coming up in the industry, it's been great. All positives. I'm very grateful for everything I've experienced in it. Coming through high school, I wasn't the most studious individual in my younger years. I didn't have plans on going on college or anything like that. But for everybody, such as myself, the time came where I decided I need to figure something out. I knew I didn't want to work indoors. I enjoy working with my hands. I enjoy fixing things. I enjoy building things. So I knew I wanted to go in that direction, but wasn't quite sure what to do with it, and a good friend of mine back in that time, his dad was a lineman for the power company out here. So started talking with him about that path, what type of trajectory do you need to be on to even get your foot in the door? Once you're in, what type of opportunities are there? Just where can you take this? So talked with him quite a bit about it and decided, that'll be a pretty good option. Getting into that trade, I can definitely support my family. I won't have to depend on anybody else financially, and it sounds like something I would enjoy doing. So what I did from that point is I went down to the power company service center here every single Friday for almost 10 months.
Wow.
I put in an application as a company-wide helper. And I don't even know if that position existed at the time. It just sounded like something. My goal was just that hopefully eventually they would get tired of seeing my name on a piece of paper and pick up the phone and give me a call. And that's exactly what they did. After about 10 months, they called me.
That's amazing.
And they're like, hey, you want to come in and test for a meter reader position? I'm like, cool, absolutely. That's my foot in the door right there. I'll definitely do that. So went down and did that. About a month or so later, they gave me a call and said, hey, okay, cool. Come in for an interview, see this job. So I did that. Got hired on as a meter reader, which was great. That's all I wanted was a chance. I wanted to get my foot in the door. I knew if I got in, I can go other places from there. So did that for about 10 years and then 10 months. Did that for about 10 months. And then an opening came up in the substation department for a groundman position. It's a groundman, grunt, helper, wherever you are, you call it something different.
Carry the tools, baby.
There you go, man. So did that. I got in as a groundman, and that was great. Very eye opening. I kind of had a little bit of a advantage over other of my counterparts at the time at that level. I knew the tools, I knew how to work, so on and so forth. So kind of fell into that, lined up pretty well. Did that for almost 2 years before I was awarded an apprenticeship in the substation department for substation journeyman electrician. So started that apprenticeship, completed it after 4 years, journeyed out as a journeyman substation electrician on a construction crew. So worked that first year as a journeyman on the construction crew, setting equipment, pulling cable, wiring, terminating risers, bending busts, the whole 9 yards. And that was a lot of fun. On those construction crews, you're working with 8 or 10 other individuals. So it's a fun environment. You're going to have at least 2 characters out of that bunch every time.
Always.
So that was a good time. But I knew I wanted to get over onto the testing side of things. So after about a year working on a construction crew, I went over and talked to the maintenance foreman, the substation maintenance foreman. I said, hey, any way you can make room for me, I can kind of transition over here off of construction on the maintenance. And they liked me well enough, so they made room. They got me on a maintenance crew, and that was, 100% apparatus testing, troubleshooting, building transformers, all that good stuff. Did that for about 3 years, and I enjoyed it. That was a lot of fun too. The fun aspect of working on a maintenance crew is it's you and your partner, right? Just driving around in your truck, putting out fires, doing troubleshooting all over the valley. And that was a really good time. But after 3 or 4 years of doing that, an opening came up in system protection. And I was always told that the sooner, if you ever want to go do relays, the sooner you do it, the better. You know what I mean? You don't want to be trying to learn this stuff when you're 50 years old, because it takes a long time to feel relatively comfortable, right? So opening came. I knew I wanted to do that eventually, so I figured, hey, why not now? So I got over into the relay department. That was a whole different experience, fun in a very different way, more engaging than anything else. You're always just dialed in on what's going on, learning new things. It was good. I really enjoyed it. And after about 4 or 5 years of that, my foreman retired, and nobody else on the crew was interested in stepping up and taking his place. So I figured, well, they're not going to do it, I'll do it. I know that my department filled with very solid individuals. We still got 3 very old dogs running around, so I knew, even though I in no way felt ready to do that, I knew I had the support structure there. When I needed to reach out, I would have those resources. I could get it done. So made that jump. It was definitely a big transition, but that was back in 2019, and I'm very glad that I did that. Then recently, about a year and a half ago, I decided to start Delta recruiting. Like all the other technicians out there, I had a lot of conversations, get a lot of phone calls from recruiters over the years, and I figured, hey, I can do this. I know the work. I know what these people are asking for. I know what the clients are asking for. I know what the candidates are talking about when I'm talking with them about their jobs and what they're looking for, so on and so forth. So after thinking about that for a while, I decided to start Delta recruiting, and that's what I've been doing ever since. Very, very good move.
That is awesome. And you make some very, very cool critical points, man. The perseverance aspects and tenacity. I didn't even know that part of your story. After knowing you for over a year and a half, you took 10 months to get your foot in the door to go read meters. That is fantastic. And that's definitely a super solid character tell from that perspective that I had no idea. So I learned something from the podcast already. I should have had you on sooner.
Very good. Yes.
Up next, we have Molly Moran. Molly is the founder of Atlas Connections, a boutique woman-owned talent advisory firm focused on mission-critical and data center hiring. She brings over 15 years of experience in talent acquisition, including senior leadership roles supporting federal data center and highly regulated environments, with time at MC Dean and Insight Global. Molly started working with us about 4 months ago and brings an owner's mindset, deep specialization, and a disciplined approach to execution and long-term alignment. Getting to be a fly on the wall and watching the amount of work that she can squeeze into a day is truly awe-inspiring. And still to this day, I don't know how you do it, ma'am. But Molly, you've worn a lot of hats in this industry. I'd love for you to share a bit more about your background and how you ended up focusing so heavily on mission critical and data center work.
Sure. Well, and thank you again, Micah, for having me on. I've definitely worn a lot of hats. I think it all really started 15 years ago. And my geographic territory for Insight Global was Northern Virginia, or Data Center Alley. And it was really becoming what it is today. They were really starting to scale in a meaningful way. And I found myself intrigued by this intersection of engineering, infrastructure, and a sense of urgency. I think what really pulled me in was just curiosity. I wanted to understand how these environments actually worked, not just the job titles, but the power paths, the uptime requirements, the safety consideration, and like how every role within the data center mattered. So I took a lot of pride in learning the ins and outs of the data centers and how the industry was evolving. And that curiosity has always stayed with me. Then I moved into more federal, which was really, highly regulated environments, and that same mindset carried over. The work is complex, the stakes are high, and you really can't approach hiring like at a surface level. You have to really understand the environment, the pressures, what the people are doing, who they're supporting. Um, and then over time, I realized that I was most effective when I went deep instead of wide. So that's what led me to Atlas Connections. It's intentionally boutique. I want to be a niche. I want to focus on mission critical work and data center hiring because those are the spaces where trust and transparency actually like makes a difference. And I think the most rewarding part in regards to staying so niche and staying within that data center or federal space is that the people that I've worked alongside for like 15 years. So, we've grown professionally as the industry has grown. And I think that trust is something that I really value deeply. And it's the foundation of how I operate, but how, I want Atlas Connections to operate.
I love that. And we've talked through this on the backside, right? You and I have. It's very, very important because we see so many generalists, right? Generalist agency, basically, your Insights, your Aerotechs, K-Force, Robert Half's, whoever it may be. And they're plugging, into the space wherever they can. And then, of course, we hear about the fly-by-night companies that are forming up and doing the things and trying to mimic what they're doing. To me, the arbitrage opportunity for us is finding that niche and really, really going hard and learning as much as you can, like we did in the NITA space, and then working with other SMEs, right? Which is one of those things that kind of led us to work together anyway.
Exactly.
It's like getting it tied in and being the true experts in that space, right? And that's one of the things that I just love about our team. It's an A team that we're just ingrained completely in power, from the utility to the data centers to the service technicians and everything else in between. And just to be able to have those complex conversations amongst the team is truly fantastic. And again, you're killing the game, and just love working with you, ma'am.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. And up next, we have Brendan Smith. Brendan is the managing partner for delivery and operations at Southern Staffing Group. He spent most of his career in recruiting and talent leadership with senior roles at Microsoft, Amazon, Collabra, and Aerotech, leading both high volume and highly specialized recruiting teams. Brendan joined us about 8 weeks ago and has been focused on helping us tighten delivery standards, accountability, and operating rhythm as we continue to scale. Early on, I knew that I didn't have the experience or the wisdom at all to build a world-class foundation that would allow us to scale. Had no idea what metrics or right looked like. Didn't even know what spread was for the recruiters out there. We'll get a chuckle out of that. And I knew that early on. And after searching for the better part of 2 years for an equity partner that could execute that half of the vision, I met Brendan. He and I have been talking for the better part of a year, and after sharing and collaborating, we decided to partner up and grow Southern Staffing Group into what I envisioned it to be. As you will hear in this conversation today, what he has managed to do in 8 short weeks is truly staggering, and it's been the most viable contributor to actually coming up with the SOPs, the workflows, candidate tracking, and I truly believe we're operating at a world-class SOP and framework organization now. Brendan, you spent your career inside some of the very large organizations. Walk people through your path a bit and what you learned along the way, rather, that still sticks with you today.
Yeah, no. First off, thanks for having me on the podcast, Micah. Couple of things that stand out. I mean, I started my first business at a very young age. I was 12. I had my first employee at 14. And yeah, work ethic has always been something that I've gravitated towards and learned at a young age. And so when I found recruiting, I've always had a passion to help people. And this was a platform where I could help people pursue excellence in their life, whether that was a small pay bump, whatever. So my passion in life to help people and recruiting industry really just were a perfect match. Started the career at Aerotech on the agency side. Did really well as a recruiter there, went full desk, continued success in that, and then ultimately got burnt out pretty quick, left the industry, went back to my nerd stuff on the chiropractic biophysics side. So I'm the table nerd here for sure. I think most of the team knows that at this point.
We weren't going to tell anybody.
I'm open about it. And then Microsoft came calling. So Microsoft, phenomenal organization, got to work on a really cool team with PhDs in data science and recruiting PhDs and managing a team there. Great success as an organization and as a team. And then Amazon came calling with an opportunity to lead a larger group and a larger team within workplace health and safety. Went and did that, and that's where I got my first taste really on the recruiting operations side. I had a phenomenal mentor in my life who worked at Amazon as well and really taught me the ins and outs of systems and operations within recruiting, not just sourcing, not just, filling a role, but the back end processes. And that's really where kind of a passion sparked in me of how can we take systems, make them scalable for entire groups of people to make things more efficient. Wound up writing my first SOP, and then ultimately went back to Microsoft and had 2 more SOPs that I wrote that got deployed to all of worldwide operations recruiting, and helped write the playbook for high volume events recruiting at Microsoft for one of the largest business lanes over there. So the passion of helping people transition from a candidate perspective to how do I help internal teams have everything at their fingertips to be as successful as possible. That's one of the mottos I've had, is when you help other people achieve things in their life and get to the mountaintop and see that success, it'll come back to you in some way, shape, or form. And then we uprooted our family, moved from Washington State to Texas, and then started at Collabra and managed the architecture, engineering, construction. That's where I started in recruiting, was the skilled trades and engineering firms. That's where my passion was. Had an opportunity to develop my skills there on the client side, especially. Then somewhere along the way, you found me in there, Micah, and we started talking, and was excited to come over here and really be a part of an amazing team that you've helped put together, and just a driven group of people that aren't going to let the standards slip. And I think that's something in the recruiting industry across the board, that when we hold ourselves to high standards, the clients like that, the candidates like that, and not every company holds themselves to those standards. So couldn't be more excited to be aboard, and that's kind of a little bit of a back journey there.
No, love it. And I think you made the most salient point there. Like, this group is an absolute group of killers. And just in the first couple of years, it was like, I can kind of do it. I'm retired. I can play. I can do all these things. And just to say I've had the kind of up the level of activity and do all the things and now be held accountable to all you guys has been just one heck of a ride. And so thanks again to all of you for that side of it. And up next, we have Buck Rajas. He is the lead technical recruiter at SSG with experience across executive, technical, and high-volume recruiting environments. Before joining us, he worked at LHH and Collabra supporting complex technology and infrastructure hiring. And he joined SSG about 6 weeks ago and brings a very execution-first mindset to sourcing candidates, evaluation, and delivery. A recruiter will typically take a few months to get spun up in something as complex as the power industry, as we kind of touched on when we were first starting. Very complex industry, knowing what relay techs touch, how NETA and NICET are structured, and so much more. And Buck has nailed that and is already exceeding expectations far beyond what I could have expected, and is paving the way for our team to grow. Buck, tell folks a little bit more about your background and how you ended up in recruiting, and what parts of your past roles still influence how you work today.
Yeah, for sure. Well, echo the sentiment, Micah. Thanks for having me on the podcast, as always. Yeah, I mean, for me, kind of to echo what Brendan was saying, I just enjoy helping people. I always have. And coming out of college, I got into real estate. And I thought, what better way than to find someone their home, where they're going to live. And graduated college, came back to Dallas, where I'm from. And me and my wife, we did the long distance deal. She was living in San Diego. I was living here. She said, come out to San Diego for a couple weeks. Let me show you around. And of course, me being a Texas boy, I'm like, there's nothing better than Dallas, right? You know? So went out there for about a week and a half or so, saw San Diego, and I was like, okay, I get it. You got me. So moved out there. That's when, I kind of transitioned into recruiting. I had a buddy there that was like, hey, man, I think you'd be really good at this. You know, you enjoy helping people. You kind of get to do a little bit of both on the client side, the candidate side. So I was like, why not? Let's try it out. So that led me into my time at LHH, where I was doing full desk recruitment. Did that for almost 4 years. Found a lot of joy in it because of that aspect. You know, like Brendan was saying, being able to help folks not only on the candidate side, but the client side as well, and kind of be the matchmaker, if you will. Join with Brendan at Collabra, where I was at for about a year or so. Really got an in-depth look of his brain. Like he said, he is not lying. He is a true data nerd, which I love.
Big time. Me too.
But really enjoyed working with him and getting to meet Micah. And he was like, hey, man, I have this guy. He's out in Mississippi, the middle of nowhere, but he has a true thing growing right now. And, so Micah and I met, and he wasn't lying. You know, I think that truly shows Micah's true partnerships and relationships with the clients that he serves. And he cares, so I was like, let's do it. I'm on board. So, in the last 6 weeks, it feels like 6 months in a good way. Been a lot of learning, a lot of drinking from a water hose, but been super exciting. Like I said, I'm excited to, dive into a new skill set, a new talent pool. A lot of learning on my part, but super excited for the future.
Likewise, brother. And like I said, it's looking like 2026 is just going to be one heck of a ride, is what it comes down to. It's kind of, I still pinch myself thinking like, this is where we're at from 3 years ago when it was just a thought in your head. So to see something come together that you bootstrapped and built from the ground and get to work with all you amazing people is just truly phenomenal. And then last but certainly not least, because we don't have a least on this team, they're all freaking awesome. I guess I'd be the least, so I'll rock with that. But Chris Dove is a senior talent acquisition leader with deep experience supporting large-scale data center and infrastructure organizations. Most recently, he served as director of talent acquisition for Stream Data Centers and previously led talent acquisition efforts at Align Data Centers during periods of rapid expansion. This is very, very cool. And one of the things that we've talked about ad nauseum with Chris is also a former Navy nuclear electrician's mate and started working with us about 2 weeks ago. Well, technically about 4. This is, I guess we're going on to number 4 here. So time is flying by. But he brings a fresh but very informed operator's perspective on how we show up in the market. He and I have talked, like I said, on and off for a few years now, and I've always admired his impact in helping veterans and in the Navy nuclear community. I've tried to land him a few times in full transparency, and we were finally able to make that happen. And Chris brings so much knowledge from the data center industry that aligns with our goals in increasing our presence in the data center space. Can't talk today. Chris, you've had a really interesting path from the Navy into engineering and then talent leadership. Give listeners a little bit more context on that journey and how it shaped the way you view hiring today.
Awesome. Thank you, Micah, and thank you for having me. I really do, feel the love on the podcast already and the love with the team, even though I've only been here a short time. So 2015, right, about 10 years ago, 11 years ago now, I was transitioning out of the military, and I didn't know what I didn't know, right? They try to give you TAPS class and all these resources and everything. But recruiting and hiring is so nuanced, right? You might go to 3 interviews with one company and everybody likes you. You might do 3 interviews with another company and everybody dislikes you, right? So, everybody that I knew throughout the Navy nuclear power program that had reenlisted and was serving an extra 2 or 4 years, when they went to make the transition after me, that's actually when I first became a recruiter. I was just helping my buddies also transition from the Navy, and they all hit me up because they were like, "Hey, Dove, you got out first, right?" and it was really working with them and, you know, seeing that they had all the same questions and, you know, also didn't know the same things that I didn't know, that I actually referred over so many people to a little company, a little recruiting company, that the recruiting manager called me one day and he was like, "Hey, you've got 5 people hired this month. That's more than some of my recruiters that I pay." He's like, "You know, have you ever thought about doing this as a career?" So I got out of the military. I went into field service, biomedical equipment, got some promotions and some increases in my station there to become a commissioning engineer. And then, you know, I immediately realized as a recruiter that when I was talking to field service technicians and commissioning engineers, and, you know, I could talk the talk and tell them the good and the bads of the job, right? That they really took that to heart. And, you know, typically whenever a recruiter is telling you about a role, right, they're selling you on it and they're pitching you, and not coming from a sales background, just coming from, you know, the hands-on skilled trades. I didn't have anything to sell. I literally was just transparent and honest with them, like, hey, you know, sometimes it's going to suck. Sometimes you're going to miss weekends, things like that. And I think that's really why the community took a liking to me. I've always said that, you know, I'm a veteran first, a veterans advocate second, and a recruiter third. And I think, you know, with 7+ years of doing this full time, I haven't seen one complaint about me or one, you know, public post bashing me. And hopefully that doesn't happen anytime soon. That's the goal, right? I just really, I treat everybody in the seat as if I was in the seat, and try to peel back the curtain as much as I can for them so that they know what's going on. And that led me to Aligned Data Centers. Aligned was one of my clients. You know, we filled a lot of high critical roles together. And I always asked myself, I said, man, you know, why don't clients hire, you know, their headhunters more often? So they worked it out with my company. I went over to Aligned Data Centers, and that's where I really got into talent acquisition. So I went from being a recruiter, you know, working a job rec, getting the person hired and moving on to being in talent acquisition and really having to build those, you know, evergreen pipelines. And I showed up and, you know, I like to say, they gave me one folder that said resumes, one folder that said job descriptions, and they said, "Welcome to talent acquisition." I was employee number 97 of the company, but the first one in my department. So it was talent acquisition and one woman over in HR who was phenomenal and amazing. And she let me bite off exactly as much as I could chew. I didn't know what I didn't know. I'd never stood up people's interview processes before, right? I had never made those kind of decisions. And I like to lovingly joke that if I was really bad at my job, I could have ruined the company, right? So luckily I wasn't too bad at it. And I helped from being employee number 97, we scaled up to over 1,000 people. Wow. And then, of course, last year, Aligned made a successful exit and sold for $40 billion to a consortium of BlackRock, XAI, and NVIDIA. So that's how I got here.
No, that is wild. And to your point of having, and several of you guys have been in like the ground floor, and just to be able to see the fruits of your efforts, right? And look at those exit strategies. And you can literally look back and say, like, I had a true impactful impact. True impactful impact, but a true impact on the success of that organization. And I'm sure you guys, I can tell the audience, you know, we got brief intros here, but every one of these guys and gals is truly passionate about the helping, passionate about the knowledge of the space and knowing it, not at a surface level, right? Like we already kind of talked about, there's a lot of generalist agencies, but everybody comes with that drive to learn more, specifically about the spaces that we've all chosen to work in. And again, just before we get into the Q&A, I can't say thank you enough to the 6 that are on here. We have several members that can't join due to NDAs or other arrangements there. So there is a little bit more force behind us. And like I said, everybody is wired like this that we work with, and it's truly amazing and impactful. And so thank you all again for that. And without further ado, we'll kind of get into the questions here, so we're not on for 3 hours. But Jay, you've been around us being Southern Staffing Group longer than anyone else on this call. So I want to start with you. When we first started working together, What stood out to you in a good way, and where did you immediately see gaps that needed to be addressed? And I'm sure there's plenty.
Well, what stood out to me in the beginning was everything, because I was new to this world. Hadn't gotten into recruiting before starting my own thing, just came from the technical side of things. But what I definitely liked in the beginning was just to learn how relationship driven everything is over here. Sales are one thing. This is relationship driven. I really like that aspect of it. You become friends with these candidates and these clients to a certain degree. Of course, business is involved, but you genuinely want to see your clients win the game. You feel like a partner. You want to do what you can to help them. Even if there's no business to be had with them at this particular time, you want them to win. You want them to grow and succeed. And same with the candidates. I've been in their shoes at during times, and you want them to land that job that they really want to get. You got a guy who wants to be home more. You got a guy who wants to be out on the road more, make more money being out on the road, so on and so forth. So you develop relationships with these people over time. It's not a fly by night thing. You really become friends and want to help them out in any way you can. And so I really like that aspect of the business. So that's what stood out to me the most. Like here's a job where I can help people get what they want, help them better their career, help them better their financial situation, help these companies get what they need to continue to grow and win. And they're all great people. It's
absolutely.
I don't think at least myself personally, I haven't come across anybody that I didn't enjoy working with. So that makes it really good. And just all the learning that comes along with it stood out to me as well. I'm talking to technicians all over the country, working for service companies, just a completely different world these guys are coming from than what I'm used to being on the utility side. So that was awesome. That's, of course, stands out to me as well. As far as what I felt needed to improve, I mean, same thing as always, and probably always will be the case. It's just the efficiency of things, so much coming in, so much to do all the time, getting that system dialed in to where we're making the most of our time, making the most of everybody's time, making it as efficient as possible. But now you have a Brendan. We have a Brendan.
Exactly. Everybody needs a Brendan.
There you go. We're on our way to getting that cleaned up as well. So.
No, beautiful points, man. And for the right reasons, right? And so, again, a lot of people see the dollar signs in the industry, and that's one of those things. And we've gone through some folks that try to make it work, and you could just tell culturally it wasn't there. It was more about the bottom line, right? And getting the money. If you're not building those deep relationships, then what are you truly here for, right? Is it just for the paycheck? And the industries that we support are so freaking small. So if you get the name for being that spray and pray person, or that just doesn't care, doesn't respond, or doesn't do due diligence and really just care about the freaking jobs and the applicants and the clients, you're never going to get there, right? So that's why I just absolutely love our current core team of folks that we're working with, because everybody shares that outlook, and you just can't ask for more from that perspective. Brendan, you've only been here for about 8 weeks now, which honestly makes your perspective really valuable. Coming from your background, what stood out to you right away about how this business actually operates day to day? And I want you not to hold back and give the nitty gritty details. Obviously, we started running it from Excel spreadsheets and notebooks and emails and calendar invites and everything. And one of the entering arguments very early on for me was, and this is a caveat more than anything to say, I knew I had to get to this level. But with that little disclaimer, the floor is yours, my friend.
Yeah. I think first and foremost, like every organization that you're in, if you have the right mindset, there's always areas to improve. I think if you get to the mindset of we've got it made, we've figured it all out, that's a dangerous place to be. And honestly, just in talking to you before I joined, I saw that hunger and that desire to want to improve things, because if you improve your systems internally, you're going to deliver better for your clients. And that's really at the core of the systems and operations side. And so coming in day one, I wasn't fully sure what to expect, to be honest. There was some spreadsheets and things that you had all stored up here. And I'll always give you props. Just your relationship building with your clientele is unparalleled in this industry. I mean, everyone on this call has deep relationships. I know talking with Molly, her relationships, and Jay, you guys have those foundations. And I think it started with those relationships, Micah, and then everything else, if you have that mindset to improve, kind of comes along. And so going from spreadsheet tracking or things that were tracked in your head, and getting it in a centralized location, I think was critical for us. But day-to-day operations, right? The heart set and mindset behind it is, how can I make everyone that's a part of this group, their life easier, faster, more efficient? And having done that at the enterprise level with Microsoft and Amazon, transitioning to an agency at this size, because those relationships were there, actually made it quite easy, because everyone on this call has that same mindset of, we want to get better. So I'm not going to say it was great early on, getting everything from spreadsheets to a centralized model to the right tool stack, all of that kind of thing. But now that we've gotten it there, from a recruiting perspective and delivering for our clients, I think we've got a really good foundation to continue building on, to continue to support our clients and the candidates the way that we need to. So it was a transition period. We've made it through the hard parts, I feel like, and now it's fine tuning as we go, and continuing to have the right mindset of continuous improvement. And we've never made it to the mountaintop. We're always climbing to the next thing.
100%, brother. And like I said, it wasn't for a lack of wisdom on my part. I knew I didn't have a lack of want, right? I just didn't have the experience. I was the guy that said, "Oh, I'm going to go start a firm today." I kind of know what I recruited in the Navy. I kind of knew what this looked like. And the entering argument was, I knew I was well outside of my wheelhouse of expertise. And so at least knew the writing was on the wall from that perspective, at least. But it, like I said, it's been truly phenomenal having you on and building out the systems and everything that we're doing. And of course, getting everybody to buy in. One of the biggest things you kind of, from an MBA perspective is change agency, right? So we all operate kind of individually and doing our own things. And now how do you convince everybody to kind of join the fray and do the things? And then, and that to me was what I kind of, I guess, had in my mind that would be one of the most serious challenges that we faced, right? And what has just been fantastic is everybody's willingness to learn and want to work together, and, sharing collectively how we're working on each other's roles and things like that. Like, it's all tied together. And of course, we still got a little bit more room for improvement. But again, it's iterative, right? You got to lay the foundation that you can grow from, get everybody ingrained, figure out the SOPs, and then grow from there. So to your point, man, it's absolutely paramount that we continue to always be learning from that perspective. And we know that's one of our core values, right? And doing that, but truly love the impact. And Miss Molly, you came in while we were already moving. You didn't see the very early chaos, but you saw enough. From an owner's perspective, what did you walk into operationally, and where did you see quick wins that could tighten execution?
I think what stood out to me immediately was that the core was strong. So real industry credibility, real relationships, and people that, genuinely care about their work. That's not something that you can manufacture. And honestly, it's probably the hardest part to get right. I think from there, the quick wins weren't about changing what we did, but more tightening how we support each other. So a lot of the early focus when I first joined was just, how do we execute better? Understanding each of our clients' differentiators, the ins and outs of their benefits package, putting that somewhere for everybody to be able to access, their culture, what sets them apart in the market, and how do we as partners to them sell that to an applicant or explain that to an applicant? I think that was paramount in what shifted in those first couple weeks supporting you. And then once we had that clarity, it became easier to act as a true extension of everyone's clients, not just my clients, not just your clients, and not just being your standard recruiting arm. You're really an extension of whatever company it is that you're supporting. And then internally, for me, that meant leading by example, especially as you continued to build out your team. So sitting on interviews where we can, staying close to hiring managers, creating that regular cadence around priorities. I think that has helped our partnership stay proactive versus reactive, which is where you see the most success. And then I think just those small operational disciplines really add up quickly. The more that you tighten execution, the better candidate experiences, and you make it crystal clear where to double down and where to scale.
I think that is so spot on. And to your point, and we're all working together collectively. This isn't just an internal SSG effort, right? It's everybody involved is coming in and making those recommendations, and how can we improve the tech stack, and where can we move them, and where those efficiencies lie, and where can we find more, basically. And again, I'm again pinch myself on a regular basis, I guess, from that perspective. And it's just awesome. And it's 2026 is just off to a fantastic start.
We're more intentional.
Yes, very intentional, and much more operational, much more of an operational cadence that we just didn't have the clarity on before, I would think, more than anything, if that makes sense.
Exactly.
And Mr. Buck, you're still pretty new here. You hired on a couple weeks after Brendan, so I believe we're hitting up on 6 weeks of working together here. How would you describe the onboarding, the expectations, and the support compared to the other recruitment environments you came from? Obviously, having come from the massive, giant organizations, what stood out and what were the differences?
Yeah, I would say the first thing is just a hands-on approach of training and support. Whether it be Micah literally day one handing me a hand-built training module on what to look for in the skill sets, to even Jay being our SME on the team, spending time out of his day while he's working his daytime job, an hour-long video just walking through the substation and what to look for. From that aspect, everything has been second to none, honestly. Like you said, I come from, conglomerate of a company with companies that I've worked with in the past. And, while the training was there, it wasn't as hands-on and as intentional. So that's the biggest thing that has really stood out to me is just, hand-holding, if you will, when needed, to get me up to speed with the different skill sets and the different ICPs we're looking for. But not only that, just being involved in everything. I think that's a huge benefit with our team. The fact that we are a smaller team currently, there's no surprises, right? Whereas you're working for a larger company, they tell you one day on a Tuesday morning meeting, hey, this is how it's going to be. We made the decision. You have no say in it. And I think that's something that I really appreciate with SSG is, everything we do, there's a conversation about it first. And does this benefit everyone on the team? Is the ROI there? Those are things that I truly value and appreciate. And that's something you don't get with larger companies. So everything has been great to that standpoint, even expectation wise. Micah actually had the pleasure to come down to Dallas recently and meet with me and Brendan. And, I think we spent an hour or longer just going over expectations for the years. And I don't even want to call them expectations, more of goal setting. And, just being able to see that not only from an individual contributor type person like myself, but what is the company's goals this year? Where are we looking at? How are we sitting day to day, month to month, week to week, whatever it is? So those things I truly appreciate because my past experience, it has not been as such. So both of those have been second to none, like I said.
Thank you, my friend. That is awesome. And to your point, to me, it's just common sense, right? If you want to build in loyalty and drive and shooting for a common mission or objective or outcome, you have to give everybody the tools, the data, and let them know and show them the numbers, right? Nobody wants to open the book and be transparent. You have to trust me and I have to earn your trust. So why aren't we doing that? So again, maybe to me, it seemed like a common sense thing. And apparently a lot of the things that I thought were kind of pretty common in the space after talking to you and Chris and Brendan and Molly and everybody that's been in apparently is not common. So we'll keep rock and rolling in our weird little offbeat path, I guess. But hey, Chris, man, you've only been working with us literally for a couple of weeks, but you've seen a lot of organizations at scale, of course. What jumped out to you right away? Like I said, I know you and I have been talking back and forth, I believe for almost 2 years now, if I'm not mistaken. And obviously had some killer conversations about the industry and things like that. But what jumped out to you right away about how we present to clients, partners, and how do you think we stack up with regards to our tech stack and processes from a massive organization? Have we laid the foundation well?
Honestly, man, you will either love or hate this next comment. But when we talked about me joining 6 months ago and we didn't have the Brendan piece, Right. I'm a lot like you in the fact that, I have these deep relationships with my clients. I'm very good at what I do. I know the industry in and out. But I was not that data and automation process driven person. Right. So I like to say I'm somewhere between you and Brendan in that regard. But then also knowing Molly, Molly and I have been recruiting, against each other, for 5+ years in the data center space. And, we never made it that way, right? We would have conversations about candidates, about clients, about all of these things. And, it was always, hey, come join me at the buffet more than, hey, you're my competitor kind of thing. So that was a beautiful thing. And then, the history between me and Brendan, where he was a potential vendor of mine. So just really seeing the crew that got together and knowing they're genuine in their interests and genuine in what they do, that was very important to me. And then this next part, I honestly didn't expect a lot coming in the door, right? Brand new company, had just added a couple new people. Brendan had only been kind of setting up shop for a couple of weeks, but I got better training in the first 30 days to get in in the first 3 days to get in the systems and actually start being productive. So shout out to Buck, Brendan, and you, Micah. From the energy of the morning calls to hey, don't worry about it. I'll show you exactly how to do that. Boom, we're sharing screen, right? And like, that's how everyone is. And, it's a very altruistic, feeling there, right? No one of us feels like we're doing anything, better or worse. We're all just doing it together. And I think the rising tide is going to lift all ships, especially with Brendan getting the tech stack squared away. My ability to be efficient and it automatically logging my activity is huge for guys like me and you, right, Micah? We can smile and dial all day long, and then we've got that computer assistance to make us into real adults. And yeah, man, I'm happy to be here, and thanks for having me.
Absolutely, my friend. And I think you nailed it. And like I said, I'll give Brendan another shout out because what he was able to do in 8 short weeks is nothing short of a miracle, in my humble opinion. So, oh, mercy. Jay, looking up back over the last year and being one of the first to join while I was trying to figure out everything, at what point did we kind of stop feeling like a young recruiting shop and start feeling more like a dependable operating partner?
Just as a team continued to grow, the teamwork and collaboration that's involved in this group is awesome. Everybody complements each other one way or the other. And just as that team grew, the skill sets grew, people being, very well informed in different facets of the information we need and how we need to proceed with business and everything else like that. That's when it became, much more professional you know what I mean?
I do. No, yeah, it's not a shot. I get exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. It's still, it's not formal. We're still relationship driven, of course. It's still about that relationship we have the candidates and the clients, but it's a more serious outfit now. We're doing bigger things now with the people that have joined the team and what everybody brings to the table. So definitely a lot has changed over the past year, obviously.
Absolutely. No, that's awesome, brother. And then, Brendan, early in your tenure, where did you see the biggest opportunity? Like I said, you kind of walked into a quote unquote shit show, right? To add structure without slowing us down. Obviously, you got in with the partners. We were already moving recs and getting candidates across the board. So you're almost jumping on a moving train at that point, right? You don't want to slow down momentum from that aspect. But what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, first, I'm not going to be able to get my head out the door with all the things you guys are saying about me nicely. So calm it down a little bit so I can walk through my house. No, I think the foundation, as Molly talked about earlier, was like whether it's her relationship with her clients or Jay or you or Chris, like that foundation was there and the deep trust from the clients. And so I didn't have to worry about the clientele base. It was the relationships are there. So where do we need to improve from a systems and operations side? And those are little tweaks that, as Chris mentioned, when you train people the right way in your tech stack, right? Every agency has a different tech stack, but when you train people the right way and it makes sense for them and they see the value add that it brings, it's easy to get people on board with that. I think the biggest thing is we continue to adapt and grow. I think the biggest thing is the culture that we have and keeping the element of, kind of that Necton mentality. We're always hungry, never satisfied. If our clients don't have every position filled on their board, there's an opportunity for us to help, right? And then, the Farmers Alliance, if you will, like, PJ Fleck talks about it. It's like the wind dictates how our crops. We're all in alliance here, and like, whether we're helping Molly with something or she's helping us, or vice versa with Jay, like we have that alliance, and keeping these bonds strong internally is massive. So I think that always hungry, never satisfied, the Farmers Alliance, and then just everyone on this call is, a go-getter. And no one here wants to take their foot off the gas, because that means we're not supporting our clients the best way possible or supporting these candidates the best way possible. So I think if we can maintain those three things as we continue to scale and continue to grow, the ceiling is what we put on ourselves in this case. And no one here wants to put a ceiling on themselves or this team. So I'm excited to continue for that to be the heartbeat of our culture and to get to do it with all of you guys on this call.
That's beautiful, brother. Molly, since you came in, what's the one operational habit or process that's already made a noticeable difference in stability or efficiency?
I'd say one thing that's already made a noticeable difference is being more disciplined up front, especially around intake and alignment before the work even starts. When everyone's clear on what success looks like from the beginning, the role, the expectation, the communication cadence, execution becomes cleaner across the board. It's a simple habit, but it reduces rework, it improves the candidate experience, and it creates more stability and trust throughout the team. And I think, being able to do that with each one of our different customers is so important. It also builds trust within the team. So, if somebody's working on somebody else's recs, they know that they're supported and that they can rely on each other and they can operate with confidence. It's such a simple habit, but I really feel like it has a ripple effect. And then the other thing that I would say that's made a really big difference is just having subject matter experts. So we have Brendan, who's helping, from a strategic standpoint. We have Chris, who has these strong, relationships that bring more people into the fold. We have Jay, who's a subject matter expert on all of the work that we do. And then we have Buck, an amazing recruiter. And we have Micah, the heart that holds everybody.
No comments needed.
I think that what makes us so special is us. And I think that I hope that as we continue to grow, we keep that same culture and we keep it very close knit.
Beautifully spoken, man. Beautiful. And then Buck, early impressions matter, right? So what signals to you that SSG kind of has clear expectations around candidate quality, communication, accountability? It can be cadence. It can be the reinforcement mechanisms or it can be the due diligence we do, or the building of the ICP, or any of that. Kind of what stands out to you from that perspective?
Yeah, I'm going to sound like a broken record here. We've all mentioned it, but I think it truly comes down to the relationships, right? Relationships with the clients, and truly know their business needs and what they're looking for. And I guess that ties into the ICP as well. For example, we work with a few different clients, and I'll present a client or a candidate to Micah, and he'll be like, "No, it's not good for company A, but company B will be a good fit." Just because he knows his client's needs so well. So I think it starts there. And then from step 2, I guess you could say, is process that we put in place, whether that be prep calls or debrief calls or getting references, whatever that looks like. So we're truly nailing down what a quality candidate is, and then setting that expectation with them early. On the candidate side, at least, of, hey, these positions move fast. We have a few people in play currently for this role. So if you're interested, we need to stay on top of things, whatever that is, references, background checks, whatever. So I think that the generalized answer is process and relationships, which again, I've only been here 6 weeks and I'm already seeing that is very strong, and we're building on that day by day. So
beautiful. And Mr. Chris, based on what you've seen so far, again, like I said, it's been only a very, very minimal amount of time. But from an outsider's perspective, this just getting spun up. You think we're positioned pretty well in the power industry? You think we're starting to make our way into the data center space a little bit better? Where do you think we stand there? And then kind of where do you think we still need to earn trust?
I think that's one of the reasons I like this idea so much was, you guys could have easily picked up the phone and started calling data center companies and saying, hey, we know data centers, we've got electrical techs, and you didn't, right? We all kind of stay in our lane with what we know and what we're experts at. In my first week, you were asking me questions about data centers, and I was asking you questions about utilities and relay techs, and just sharing that wealth of information. And I think as we all, keep supporting each other in this way and become, new experts in these new fields, I think that's how we build the trust and keep earning it. With Molly in the mix and myself in the mix, I think we probably have, over 15, 20 years combined data center recruiting experience, and in an industry that, has really only taken off in the last 10 years. Technically people can say they were in the industry 25 years ago, but they were still talking in kilowatts back then. And, then we spent a little blip on the radar of talking in megawatts, and now people are, talking in gigawatts. So, that evolution and, the fact that you and Brendan built this on the backbone of AI and, the convergence of these industries, right? So not only are our processes, our tech stack powered by AI, but you guys are, the utility and power generation side. Molly and I are the experts once that power is generated and sent to a data center, right? So, it just feels like kismet, man. It is a good meeting of a bunch of high performers, and I can't wait to see where we're at next year when we do this call.
No doubt about it, man. And to your point, like all of that's intentional. And we've all kind of talked about that, right? Before we go into a vertical, I'm not just going to go throw spaghetti at the wall to see what sticks, right? You have to have that macro lens and look 6 months to a year down the road. We've kind of always knew we were going to go, downstream of power gen and distribution and kind of get into the data center space. And all this has been intentional. And of course, no one's privy to the conversations we have in the background other than us. But that was always kind of part of that, right? Don't just be that generalist. I want to bring on, if we're going to go approach another vertical, I'm going to go find the smartest sons of guns I can find, or sons of gals that I can find. And we're going to, would it be gals of some? I don't know. Anyway, but just kind of like making sure you have that subject matter expertise and kind of tackling where you're at. Like, to me, that's one of those common sense things that just doesn't seem so common, build out the infrastructure first. And that's kind of where we're at, just writ large across, be it processes, be it verticals, be it whatever, is build the freaking foundation and then go from there. Does that sound pretty correct to you?
Yeah. And I just a quick little story. There was a time a vendor reached out to me. She told me she was a mission critical construction expert. I jumped over to her LinkedIn immediately while I'm on the phone with her. And literally 3 weeks before that, she was a gardener. And don't get me wrong, I love that, people are getting in the industry and they need to learn and all these things. But don't come to me and tell me that you are the expert on mission critical when I couldn't even call myself an expert on mission critical construction after 5 years of it, right? So, yes.
Hold on, we lost you just there. You came. You came back. It cut out on you there for a second, Chris. But yes, no. To your point, that's freaking. It dropped at Gardner. So where did you pick up from Gardner? I don't want to miss the key point there.
Yeah, I mean, it's great for new people to get in the industry and everything. But if you come at me and tell me you're an expert when you've got 3 weeks in, I'm already not going to trust you.
100%. 100%. And Brendan, even this early, what do you think we should be really careful of to not lose as we continue to grow? You're obviously the operational piece, the glue that binds internally. Just keep swelling that head up a little bit. But what do you think looking forward 5 years, 6 years, or even more immediate in the next year or two? What are some of those things that we just cannot lose as we continue to grow?
Yeah, I think our standards, I talked a lot about culture earlier, and that is at the foundation of what we do, is the heartbeat of the people on this team. But our standards, if we let our standards slip in any way, shape, or form, and we're constantly not improving those for ourselves, not just as a company, but also personally, individually, if we're not growing individually as people, we can't bring our best to the business every single day. So, I think as we continue to expand and hire more people and bring more people on, whether it's subject matter experts, recruiting, operations side, over the next couple of years, I think we have to maintain our standards to be at the highest in this industry. I think we all pretty much have experience with other agencies where they're throwing 20 resumes and hoping one sticks. That's not a high standard for your recruiting team or as a business. That's a low standard. And we don't do that here, right? Like, we are vetting to the highest level. We are making sure we're getting the feedback calls scheduled, making it easy on the clients as far as getting interviews scheduled. So I think that's the one thing that across the board, clients, whether they're current clients of ours or future clients, they're feeling that in the industry, is that a lot of standards are slipping.
Absolutely.
Whether that's through other means of offshoring or whatever, or just lack of training for internal teams. We cannot let that slip, and we won't.
Love it. And I couldn't agree with you more on that. And we're getting pretty close to wrapping up. So this will be the final question. I'm going to go ahead and kick it over to Jay. Jay, looking ahead 12 to 24 months, you've been with us pretty much since the very beginning when I was still trying to pull my head out of my butt, right? But in the next 12 to 24 months, what do you think needs to be protected at all costs to maintain credibility with clients and partners? And kind of where do you see us growing to?
Not going to say it. Not going to say relationships. Teamwork among the team. Everybody keeps working well together, collaborating, growing together. To Brendan's point, standards above all else. Continue to understand as much as we can about what the client's looking for, as much as we can about what the candidates are looking for, and don't pair them with anything but. Just keep that level of standard and caring about, what we're doing in this business, and everything's going to be just fine.
No, couldn't agree with you more. And Molly, we cut you off. My bad. I was reading my question set. So please, I would love your insights here as well.
I just think at the end of the day, whether you're recruiting, whether you're operating, whether you're building a business, it comes down to trust and execution. And when those two things are solid, growth is a byproduct instead of a goal. And I think you see that, twofold with us.
It's wild. Like I said, it's just to see, like, it, even like I said, 2022 is going to be a lifestyle business, right? I get a 2 or 3
see where we were 4 weeks ago or where we were 8 weeks ago,
crazy.
And where we are today. That is because of trust and because of execution.
No, couldn't agree more. And that is a great final point to make as we wrap up the interview. And for the audience, this is literally just a snapshot of the chaos and madness that is our day to day. And so I appreciate each of you taking the time to slow down and talk through this. Like I said, I tell you all the time, and I truly mean it, I couldn't ask for a better group of individuals to work with. The comms are great. Expedience is great. Quality is great. Client relationships are great. And like literally just couldn't ask for a better team. We'll continue to grow. And I think just maintain that very, very tight culture fit in the standards to everyone's points. And definitely to Molly's point, success is a byproduct of maintaining that throughout the process. And these conversations matter, especially when things are moving fast. So that's my little final opine on that. And for anyone who wants to learn more, connect with the folks on today's panel, we'll include links in the show notes to Molly, Jay, Chris, Buck, Brendan, the entire team here. And so feel free. We are trying to be a force for good for the industry as well. And we don't mind, the catchphrase, the buzzword is consultative recruiting this year. And Brendan and I were just having that conversation earlier, like, apparently we were consultatively recruiting a couple years back. So as long as we keep that same energy, I think we'll be all right. And it feels like if we're just now getting to there, we're ahead of the curve a little bit. So I'll take it. And again, thank you all for joining for this episode of the Power Relay. And for the audience, we'll get back to the more technical stuff. Like I said, this isn't a showboat for Southern Staffing Group and say, oh my, we're great. But it's just truly inspiring to me to work with this wonderful group of individuals, to see the growth that we're having. And, we don't often open up on the personal stuff on podcasts and stuff. So I just kind of wanted to open up the veil or the curtain a little bit and let everybody talk to the team and see what's going on and kind of go from there. So thank you once again to all of you for taking the time to hop on with us. And until next time, Micah out.
Thanks for tuning in to the Power Relay with Micah Clay. If you enjoyed this episode, feel free to like, subscribe, and leave a review. For more insights, contact info, job offerings, and other content, check out our Linktree sites at Linktree/Micah W. Clay or Linktree/Southern Staffing. We'd love to hear any feedback. And if you know anyone we should highlight, feel free to drop us a message. As always, thanks to those who work tirelessly to keep the lights on. Until next time.